Let's look at the business plan itself and how you create that, what goes into that, specifically the various sections. And we'll break this into several bite-sized pieces. Starting at the beginning, the first thing that you read, but the last thing that you write is the executive summary. And that's what it sounds like in this 1 to 1.5, no more than 2 pages of executive summary. You cover a little bit of everything. So it's what are you selling? Who are you selling it to? Very basics of the economics. What's your profit margin? What's the price? How much does it cost you to make it? How are you going to market it? A little bit about operations. Who's on the team? The team is a very important component. Also a little bit about the financials, especially if you're looking to raise money. How much money are you going to ask for? What is that money going to be used for? So maybe just a little hint at what the deal is that you want to get out of that. So it's a very high overview of all of the different segments. But of course you can't write that until you write all of the other segments. So it's the first thing the investor reads, but it's the last thing you write when you're creating a business plan. And the goal of the executive summary is not to get a check from the investor. The goal of that executive summary is to get them to read the rest of the plan. Because if they don't get past the executive summary and they're not interested, then they're done. They're not going to read the rest of your 20 or 30 pages. Going into the body of the business plan, the first section is just about the company itself. So tell us a little bit about the company. Is it a corporation, LLC? Where is it going to be located? Real basically what it is you do. What's the product or the service that you're going to sell? What's the business model? How are you actually going to make money? And what are you good at? Why would people buy this from you? You may talk a little bit about location and facilities that you need or that you already have. Again, this section is not very long, but it's an overview of the company itself. Maybe where the idea came from, a little bit of the history of the company. I don't want 5 pages of the backstory, but maybe it might be interesting to hear where the idea came from. The next section is, and I'm checking my notes over here to make sure I don't forget anything, is the product or the service itself. What is it you're selling? And specifically, what's the problem that you're solving? A lot of businesses or business ideas come from a problem that an entrepreneur had or knows that someone else had it. They think, if I had this problem, maybe a lot of other people are having to deal with this. And if I can find a good solution to the problem, people might pay me for that. So what's the problem you're solving? What's your solution? Why is it different from other things that are out there? So what's the actual benefit to the customer? And even better if you can tell me the benefit in dollars. So if it adds to their bottom line, or if it saves them money, or if it's more efficient than what they're currently doing, and it will save them so many staffing hours, or it improves their safety records, so they don't have lost time at work from employees. But what's the benefit? If there's no benefit, why would anyone buy it from you? Another issue on the product or service is how are you different? I joke sometimes about chicken restaurants in Stillwater. We have a lot of them if you haven't been to Stillwater. And I like chicken, but do we need another chicken restaurant? If you're going to add a chicken restaurant to Stillwater, what's going to be different? How are you different from Chick-fil-A and Zaxby's and Cane's and KFC? And so if you're just another chicken place that's like all the others and you're not different, why would people come to your place? So you don't have to be a chicken place. It could be a plumbing business or a landscaping or software or computer. So that differentiation is going to be very important. The next section is the industry analysis. The biggest mistake I see here in business plans is people write about their company, but it's not about the company. That's the first section. The industry analysis is about your industry. So if you're in the software industry or plumbing industry or landscaping industry, tell me about that. What's the industry? What is the industry? So identify it. What's it doing? Is it growing? Is it steady? Is it fragmented or concentrated? Meaning, if you're in the soft drink industry, that's very concentrated. You're going up against Coke and Pepsi. If you're in the funeral home industry, it's very fragmented. Lots of mom and pop funeral homes all across the country. It seems like every town has a different funeral home. I like fragmented industries. If I'm going to start in a business, I don't really want to compete against Coke and Pepsi. What are trends in the industry? Are there technological issues? Are there seasonal issues? For example, if you're in the landscaping industry, better tell me what you're going to be doing or how you're going to keep the lights on from November to March when nobody's grass is growing. So are you doing sprinkler systems? Do you have commercial accounts? Are you doing maintenance on other parts of the property? Are you doing Christmas lights? But some businesses are seasonal, and so you at least have to acknowledge that if you don't have a way to work around the seasonality of it. Are there economic influences, regulatory issues? If you go into the financial services industry or have a business centered around drones, there are going to be some regulatory issues. You have to know what those are and be able to navigate those. So if you don't identify those to me in the business plan, then I may not convince you really know what you're in for. So be sure and tell me, yeah, there are all these federal regulations in the financial services industry, and we have these certifications, or we're going to get them. Here's how we're going to work within state and federal regulations. What are barriers to entry? Some industries have pretty low barriers. Some have very high barriers, whether that's regulatory or cost. For example, if you want to start a new airline and go into the airline industry, very expensive, so that's a barrier to entry, and also huge federal regulations. So barrier to entry is kind of a double-edged sword. If that industry has a very high barrier to entry, it's hard for you to get into. It may take a while. You have to have the right connections, spend a lot of money. But once you're in, it's hard for everybody else to get in. So you have some protection. So you get to choose, do I want an industry that has high barriers or low barriers? But if it's low barriers, easier for you to get in, it's easy for everybody else to get in as well. So just identify what those are. Let us know. Those are the first three sections. We'll look at another video and talk about sections 4, 5, and 6.